If you've been working hard at recovery and you still feel stuck, I want you to consider something. It might not be that you're not trying hard enough. It might be that you're making a few very understandable mistakes that keep the OCD cycle alive. And the frustrating part is those mistakes often feel like the good kind of work that you should be doing. They look like effort, they look like responsibility, but the function underneath is still the same, trying to get rid of the discomfort in the short term. So in this episode, I'm going to give you 5 recovery mistakes that I see all the time. And if you can catch even one of those in real time, you can start changing your relationship with the anxiety and stop feeding the trap. Because OCD isn't beaten by perfect thoughts. It's beaten by learning a new response. You can have intrusive thoughts, you can have anxiety, and you can have doubt and still live your life. That's the whole point. So let's go through the 5 mistakes. And as I do, I want you to be honest with yourself, not judgmental, because this is about progress, not perfection. The first recovery mistake is treating anxiety like a problem that must be solved before you can start living your life. So the thought comes in, the feeling hits the body, you tense up immediately and you start going to fixing mode. You start trying to calm yourself down, to work it out, to find the right answer, make the feeling finally go away. And again, it makes sense. Anxiety is uncomfortable, but this is exactly where OCD gets you stuck in the trap. OCD convinces you that relief is the goal, that you need to feel different before you can actually move forward. But recovery is the opposite. Recovery is learning that you can still feel anxiety and choose your next step forward in your life. You can carry discomfort and still function. And the more you practice that, the more your nervous system learns. This isn't an emergency. So if you find yourself trying to solve the feeling, that's not a personal failure. It's just a place to practice a different response. Back when I was still really struggling with OCD, I would always be trying to fix myself. I had this idea that something had changed, that there was a kind of before and after with the OCD. And, there was now some brokenness in me that I had to problem solve it. I had to find the right solution. I was always reading books. I was always going online. I was constantly thinking about it, asking other people what they thought, trying to get the exact answer that would finally fix me, that would make all of this anxiety and doubt go away. I was certain that I couldn't move forward until I had that answer. And I was ultimately going to be trapped and frustrated in my life, that I wouldn't be able to be properly happy. I wouldn't be able to kind of get married and have a family and have children. I wouldn't be able to have a good career. I wouldn't be able to do all of the things in my life that I really wanted to do because I had OCD and I had this brokenness, and that needed to be resolved at first. But of course, all of that was actually, just compulsions. All of those things I was doing to try to fix myself were the very things that were keeping the cycle of OCD alive. And I was getting myself more and more stuck in the trap. When I finally, learned that and realized that I could just let go of all of that stuff, that I wasn't actually broken, that I did have a set of unfortunate habits that, for a long time had been keeping me stuck, but I didn't need to do those things anymore. It was really liberating. And that was the beginning, of this kind of huge change that I've experienced with OCD over the years. The second mistake is turning recovery into another certainty project. OCD loves this one. It turns healing into a new obsession. Am I doing it right? Is this working? How long until I feel normal again? Or what if I'm doing the wrong technique? And you can end up monitoring yourself all day long, checking your progress, checking anxiety levels, checking whether you're thinking about the OCD less or not. And the irony is here, the more that you monitor recovery, the more attention you're giving to OCD. You're still in the same pattern, trying to get that certainty, trying to reach a perfect internal state. But recovery isn't a pass or fail test. It's a direction. It's you repeatedly choosing the long-term game, allowing discomfort and moving towards your life anyway. So if you catch yourself obsessing over recovery, that's the cue to step back and return to what matters most. Not am I better yet, but what do I choose next? A helpful way to think about this is direction over destination. If you think of a compass point, perhaps north, north is the direction that you want to walk in because it's where all of your values are. It's where all of the people and the things in your life that you really care about are. And you're going to keep on walking in that direction, even when your fears are present, even when there are obstacles in the way or difficult things showing up each day. Because you care about those things, you care about that direction of north, you keep walking in that direction, but you can never ultimately arrive, at north. It's always, slightly over the next hill. And when you get there, you have to keep on going. And that's the great thing about values. They give us direction, purpose, and meaning, but we can never actually arrive at that destination because that idea of wanting to arrive at a destination is actually the OCD in disguise. It says, hey, you just need to reach this goal. You just need to get that certainty. You just need to get that answer or that reassurance, and then you're going to feel okay. Then you're going to be happy, and then you can go off into the sunset and never think about OCD again. But of course, that is just a lie. The most important thing that we can do is to keep on moving towards our goals, our values, even when the anxiety is showing up, because over time, by taking that stance, we're demonstrating to it that we're not going to allow the OCD to dictate to us how we're going to live our lives. And this is when the OCD begins to take a bit more of a back seat. Mistake number 3 is doing exposures but keeping safety behaviors attached to them. This is really common. People do the exposure on the surface, but underneath, they're still trying to control the outcome in some way. They're still checking how they feel during it, still trying to do it in the kind of perfect way, still reassuring themselves while they do it, still avoiding certain triggers just in case they might happen. And what happens is the brain never learns the lesson that actually matters. I can handle the uncertainty, because safety behaviors keep telling the brain there really is a danger and that you escaped it. So exposures aren't just about facing the trigger. They're about dropping the rituals and allowing the discomfort to be there without fixing it. And that's actually what rewires things over time. It's not glamorous, it's not always enjoyable, it's not quick, but it's effective. So the question isn't, did I do exposure? The question is, did I stop feeding the safety behavior? For example, if you struggle with checking behaviors, such as checking your front door, numerous times before you leave and having to go back maybe 4 or 5 times to check it again and again. The important thing here would be to kind of set yourself an exposure where you say, look, I'm only going to check the door once or twice max. Any more times than that, then it's not really exposure. You're just doing lots of compulsions and, you're not really helping yourself. So, if you're able to do that, if you're able to only check once and then you learn how to tolerate that anxiety and that uncertainty, well, now you're actually strengthening that habit of allowing discomfort. And this is the most important skill in overcoming OCD. We really get caught out by the difficult emotions. We come up with all sorts of safety behaviors because we don't want to allow ourselves to feel uncertainty, doubt, fear, anxiety. Those things, we're very good at kind of avoiding and coming up with excuses to not experience them. And this is why, we do compulsions. Compulsions in the short term give us a little bit of relief from those difficult emotions. But actually, by doing exposure activities, if we do them in the right way, we'll be aware of the urge to do those sneaky little compulsions. But we're going to resist them and allow that discomfort, to be there. Sneaky behaviors might come up with that example that I gave, where maybe you'll have somebody else there, with you, so you can check with them later that day. Again, that is kind of not doing the exposure in a helpful way, because you're just getting reassurance, but in a creative way. we've got to learn how to do those exposures and then, allow ourselves to feel that uncertainty and get on with our day anyway. Once we can start doing that, that's when we start getting our freedom back. The fourth mistake is trying to argue with OCD and think your way out of it. This one traps smart people because it feels like problem solving. OCD throws out a fear and you respond with logic. You try to prove it wrong. You try to convince yourself. You try to reach a conclusion that makes you feel safe. But OCD isn't looking for a reasonable conversation. It's looking for engagement. And every time you debate it, you're giving it more airtime. You're treating it like it deserves an answer. The aim is to change the relationship. Yes, maybe, maybe not. Or I'm not solving this right now. I'm allowed to not know. That is the response that breaks the loop. So if you find yourself stuck in mental debates, the move is not better debating. It's stepping back, allowing the discomfort and redirecting your attention to something more important and meaningful. This is something that I got really lost in myself. I would spend hours and hours every day ruminating about things, trying to have more certainty about them. And I would tell myself, I'll just think about it one more time, or I'll just think about it, from this angle, and then I'm going to walk away. But of course, all that OCD does is it moves the goalposts. Every time that you've kind of thought about it and you think you've come to a valid conclusion, it will just change things slightly, or it will give you another angle that you haven't yet thought of. It's very good. It's a master at kind of manipulating us in these situations to keep on looking for more and more certainty. And the more that you kind of throw wood on the fire by demanding an answer, the bigger that fire gets. And so ultimately what we have to learn to do is to drop the debate. It doesn't matter how smart you are, how intellectual you are, how good you might be at debating and kind of, thinking about things and coming up with, interesting, eloquent solutions to problems. OCD is always going to outmaneuver you because it's coming from you and it knows exactly what you're up to. So the most important thing is learning how to drop that debate and to allow the uncertainty to be there. And the fifth mistake is avoiding life until you feel ready. This is a really big one. OCD convinces you that you need confidence first, certainty first, calm first, and then you'll do the thing. Then you'll go out, then you can focus, then you can commit. But that day never comes because OCD keeps raising the bar. Recovery happens the other way round. You take action first, small, value-led action, and confidence grows from that. You don't wait for the perfect internal state. You practice living while you feel uncomfortable, and that's where your power is. Because OCD can throw you thoughts all day long, but it cannot take your ability to choose your next step. So if you're waiting to feel ready, the practice is to choose something small today that moves you towards the life that you care about, not because you feel certain, but because you're done allowing OCD to be the boss. So the next time OCD shows up, think of one small values-led action that you can take that is going to allow you to come back into the present moment and to drop the problem solving. It might be focusing on a conversation with a friend. It might be coming back to a sport activity or exercise that you're doing. It might be meditating. It might be doing some cooking. It might be doing some cleaning. It doesn't really matter what it is. Anything that actually brings you back into your body and back into the present is going to help you, to let go of that problem solving. It's going to allow you to actually find a little bit more peace in the present moment rather than constantly looking for, that certainty. So there we go, guys. I really hope that you found that helpful. If you are struggling with OCD and anxiety, I do have a 12-week program to help you to break free. It's based upon my own personal experiences of dealing with OCD for many years, as well as the work that I've done with hundreds of people to help them to overcome it. If you're interested in applying for that, you can by heading over to my website, robertjamescoaching.com. There's a link in the show notes. Many thanks, and I will see you next time. And if you're relating to this, I do have a 12-week program to help you to break free from OCD. You can find out more in the show notes. This video is for education only. It's not therapy or medical advice. If you're struggling, please speak with a licensed mental health professional.